Hello, welcome to this carrier update brought to you by Powerfleet. I'm here with Tony Mulvey. Tony, what are we starting off with?
So starting out with our outbound tender volume index, and what we see is a sharp decline. So over the past 2 days, we're down about 3%. But look at the level that we're at. We're still elevated compared to both 2020 and 2019 levels. So, I mean, there's still a lot of volume. I mean, even this drop, I mean, we've seen it in the past just this year, right? We saw one in mid-February, we saw one in early February, and then we saw one, granted this one's holiday affected, but around MLK Day. So we've seen some of these dips in freight volumes over the past month or so, 2 months. So it's a little concerning, but I wouldn't say it's too concerning just yet, right? I mean, we're still at 14,000. I mean, It's remarkable. I mean, it's 50% higher than where we were in 2019. So, I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, you look at this, we're down about 8-9% year over year. Pretty significant, but I mean, you have to remember this jump was also affected some by those outbound tender rejects. I mean, this index includes both those accepted and rejected tenders. So really when you see a big spike in rejections, it can pop this up. It doesn't necessarily give you the entire full view of what's happening. So we'll bring up our next chart. It'll be our outbound tender reject index, and what we've seen kind of down. I mean, still sliding down. I mean, we dipped under 18% there for the first time since July 2020. So pretty significant. I mean, last year, like I said, where we had that big spike in volume, I mean, rejections were 26.5%. So I mean, it's just over 900 basis point difference. I mean, look at where we were prior to 2020. I mean, right now we were starting that panic buying situation in 2020, starting to see rejections, the freight market tighten up, and we reached, 20%. Guess what? I mean, we're still almost at 20%. So that's what's interesting. When you factor it all out, take the outbound tender volumes and adjust it, I mean, they're still up about 2.5% year over year. They were up about 7% this time last week. So definitely falling down, but I mean, it's still up year over year. So I mean, that's definitely something to pay attention to here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, it definitely seems like, you said volumes are just slightly easing down, but rejections easing down a little bit more. But it's really still very much elevated, still tons of activity. It almost seems like we're just getting used to all of the volume coming through, and we're just now kind of adjusting to it now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at contract rates, right, which a lot of the increases in contract rates can be seen through this rejection index, right? More contract rates go up, more incentive for carriers to comply, fewer rejections. I looked this morning, contract rates are at $2.91 a mile. That doesn't include any fuel surcharges or anything like that. So it's just that base line haul rate. They're up about 25% year over year, right in that 20-25% range. And that's driving a lot of this. I mean, you think about where we've been and the spot market and how hot it's been. Well, now when you factor it out, those contract rates, at least on the line haul side, right, excluding the fuel surcharge and all that run up that we've seen over the past 2 weeks, it really is a lot tighter. That spread's a lot narrower. The incentive to go contract rate is a little higher. So it'll be interesting to see what those do, because they are about on a 2-week lag. So I mean, we are seeing basically what was happening at the end of February right now. So it'll be interesting to see where those go in the future and how they adjust to, obviously, rejections pulling back and those tender volumes.
And it definitely seems like there have been some changes with those contract rates, not just in the rates themselves, but typically the span of some of those contracts. And it seems like, hey, maybe this is going to be, in some rare cases, heard from Zach Strickland yesterday, it's going to be maybe a month-long contract in some instances.
Yeah, and that's definitely been, not really, I don't want to say the norm. It definitely wasn't the normal. But now it's kind of these smaller bid cycles, right? Because the market has been so hectic and things have changed, and there's been so many different catalysts, right? We had COVID as the initial one that shot us up to where the levels we are now. But now you've got geopolitical risk, you've got economic risk. I mean, looked at Bank of America's credit card spending yesterday, and some of the things that we're seeing underlying there with credit and debit card spending, how it's reacting to gas prices, things like that. Definitely something to pay attention to. I mean, it's ultimately going to be one of the drivers of freight demand, how the consumer reacts.
Definitely, Tony. Thank you so much for this update. We'll check in with you again throughout this morning, but right now we're going to toss it back over to Kaylee Nix.